Hello again, it's me, Vampireleniore, and today I decided I would make a video about some of the nightmares that I've had because it is the season for spooky stories, and what better spooky story than some of my vivid, crazy nightmares that I've had throughout my life. So, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and dive right into talking about my nightmares. So, as a person who watches and always has watched a lot of horror films and read a lot of horror books, I also have a very vivid imagination, and quite regularly throughout my life I've had a lot of crazy ass nightmares. So I'll try to tell you these in the most entertaining way possible, and I hope you enjoy. I'm going to dive right into talking about, and no pun intended, a particularly strange dream that I had about flying sharks. Yeah. I don't remember exactly what happened. I think that there was a tidal wave or something. I have a lot of nightmares about tidal waves, and some sharks just started to swim around in the air, and they would swoop down and grab people and eat them. So yes, it was a lot scarier than it sounds. It sounds really cheesy. I know if this was a movie, it wouldn't be a scary one. But just imagine going outside and there's sharks flying around in the air, waiting for you to come out so they can eat you. And they were swimming they were flying just as easily and quickly as they swim. So they were flying about 20 miles per hour or whatever it is that they swim. And yeah, a lot of people were getting killed. It wasn't a particularly long dream, so sorry that this is like kind of a short section of the video. Alright, I'll kind of talk about some of my tidal wave dreams now. I had one when I was living in San Francisco where I just was sitting on top of the the roof of the house I was living in at the time, because I had like a premonition or something that we were going to have a tidal wave, and it didn't seem like anybody really died, but all of my stuff was destroyed. So as far as nightmares go, my tidal wave dreams aren't particularly terrifying. They're just kind of, when I wake up and I think about the possibility of like this giant wave destroying everything, like a tsunami or something, that really is quite scary. And I've had several tidal wave dreams where I'll just be on the beach kind of chilling out, and all of a sudden the waves will start getting bigger and bigger. All of a sudden you're just walking through town and this wave will just like come crashing down over you and everything. So it was pretty crazy, but in my dreams the water is really, really, really soft and light, and it doesn't really hurt when it crashes down on you. It just feels like a bunch of foam or something just hitting you, or a bunch of feathers or something. If only it was like that. And I don't know, it's really kind of neat. I kind of like having my tidal wave dreams, even though I'm like really scared at first, when just the idea of water being so soft and so fluffy and not hurting when it hits you is just like a kind of magical idea. And just the fish are swimming around you and stuff, and I don't know. But yeah, I won't linger too long on those because they're not very interesting. But if you could see what I've seen in my dreams, like, you'd understand why I think about them a lot. And just to give you some idea as to why I might have some of these nightmares is, I was doing a photo shoot one time on the beach, and the waves were really crazy that day. The photographer told me, because I was posing with my back to the beach and I was about 50 feet away from the shoreline, and the photographer told me that he'd keep an eye on the waves, make sure that none of the waves were really big and could hurt me. And unfortunately, I don't think he was paying attention to the waves, because a really big one hit me, and it actually was big enough to go over my head and to drag me back several feet and knock me into rocks. And it was really scary. I swallowed a lot of water. Obviously, I survived, luckily, and I wasn't badly hurt, but that could have easily been different. And yeah, it was just really scary. It was one of the scarier things that has happened to me probably in my life. And when somebody's telling you about it, it doesn't seem that bad probably, but when you actually experience the ocean dragging you into it or toward it, it's actually really scary. And I'm glad that I was just dragged over the sand and I was like smacked into rocks, because it could have been much worse. I could have been dragged all the way back into the ocean, and yeah, it could have been worse. But I take the water very seriously now. Like, that was the day that it 100% earned my respect. And I also lived in Florida for a year where there was hurricanes all the time and stuff like that. And I had to evacuate when that would happen naturally. But yeah, 5 hurricanes in 1 year. It was 2005, so the year Hurricane Katrina hit, and the year before I was there too, and that was the year of like Hurricane Ivan, and I think there was also another major one, but I don't remember which one it was. I think it was like Dennis or something. But yeah, I've just seen the destruction and stuff like that, and heard the stories, and been through a little bit myself, so that's probably why it kind of creeps this way into my dreams. But kind of moving on to more interesting nightmares, I guess. I've had a nightmare that I was like a little kid and I was trapped in a abandoned school, and I don't know if you've ever seen the Bone Collector movies. I want to say it's Bone Collector. It's basically torture movies where a guy like sets a bunch of booby traps all over people's houses. Like, I don't know. It's pretty brutal. And there was booby traps all over the school set by a child molester. And yeah, I was just a kid. But luckily I kept dodging all the traps, but I would kind of see them go off in slow motion. Like one of them, this is kind of weird, but I tripped like a wire that set off a cannonball and it almost hit me. I don't know, but yeah, there's that one. And I've had multiple zombie dreams, one of which I'm like a really big buff guy, and I am one of the very few human survivors left. It's like a zombie apocalypse kind of situation, and everything looks very Mad Max in that dream. I'm probably like 7 feet tall and extremely muscular in that dream, like very Vin Diesel looking kind of, except even more dark and even more tall and even more buff. And I got bit by a zombie, and knowing that I was going to turn into a zombie, I strapped a bomb to my chest and went into the middle of a big old group of zombies and suicide bombed them. And in another one, it's kind of the same situation, except it's not quite as desolate looking and bleak. I'm like with a bunch of survivors, and we've locked ourselves into a school. And in that dream, I'm probably like in my 30s, but you know, I'm not the same person that I am in real life in that dream, but I look relatively similar, like brunette, pale skin. But I'm like well into my 30s, and I have like a daughter in that dream, and I am training her on a daily basis on how to fight zombies, and I've given her like a large axe or something like that to fight the zombies with, and I've got like a weapon of my own, and just we're really badass. And the zombies wind up getting into the school, and we just killing them left and right. I thought that was a pretty cool dream. Yes, there's a couple of creepy parts where we kind of just like, or I kind of just wander into a locker room and there's zombies in there, and I have to try not to get killed. But yes, I tend to have a lot of zombie dreams. And then this is where it gets kind of weird. This was the first lucid dream I've ever had in my life. And I just remember that prior to this nightmare, like the day before I had this nightmare, my mom was going to Walgreens and I wanted to go with her. I was like a teenager at the time. And that kind of worked its way into my dream. Like in my dream, I'm just sitting on my bed, and this whole dream was in black and white, like an old film, except more clear, I'd say. And my mom just kind of walks into my room, and I'm sitting there, and she asks me if I'd like to go to Walgreens with her. And I just look at her and I go, I'm having a dream. And then she's like, no, you're not. And I'm like, yes, I am. I'm dreaming right now. And then she's like, well, do you want to go to Walgreens? And I'm like, sure. But then she leaves without me. And I go out to the living room to find her, and she's not there. So I go back into my room, and there's a hamper sitting in the middle of my floor. And in it is this doll that I had in real life for a really long time. And I was actually scared of her when I was a little girl, because she was kind of realistic looking. And she was a baby face doll, and she was sitting in my hamper. And I had gotten her for like my second birthday or my second Christmas or something like that. And she like stood up in the hamper and she's like, Mama. And yeah, it sounds really cheesy, but I was really scared of her for a long time. And after I had that nightmare, I put her out in the garage. So that's the last time I ever saw her, is when I put her in the garage. But yes, I remember when I was like a little girl, I used to play with her so I wouldn't piss her off, because I thought she was going to come to life and do something to me if I didn't play with her. Because I had a vivid imagination then too, and I was a little more superstitious as a kid than I am now. But going on, I'm going to talk about, oh yeah, I've had a couple of cartoon dreams that were nightmares. Like I had one where I was in like this cartoon old western town, and I was just walking down the street, and all of a sudden a dummy just runs up to me and bites me in the leg. And then I woke up, and at the time, my bed was a secondhand bed, and it was really old, and springs would sometimes shoot out of the mattress and cut me when I was asleep. And this is one of those cases. It had cut me the very moment that I got bit by the dummy in my nightmare. So it was kind of weird. And that was definitely inspired by Night of the Living Dummy. I love that I love that book and that show. You know, it's like, for a kid, that's pretty creepy. But yeah, I love freaking Goosebumps. And I love a lot of his series, actually. Yeah, R.L. Stine is the shit. That's part of how I got into reading in the first place, was the Goosebumps books. But yeah. And then my other cartoon nightmare was, it was inspired by Winnie the Pooh and probably Queen of the Damned. Like at the beginning of the episode, it showed the title as The Bats. And then it kind of played like the happy Winnie the Pooh music. And then it kind of switched from being a cartoon to all of a sudden, it was in my first house when I was a kid, and I could hear their music, and the pounding of their drums became louder and louder the closer they got to you as they were chasing you through the house so they could suck your blood. And I was like locking myself in the laundry room with my siblings trying to keep them out. But yeah, the pounding of the drums, just like as it got louder, your heart just would pound harder and harder and you'd be more scared. But yeah, I loved Winnie the Pooh when I was a kid, so I could see why I had a Winnie the Pooh inspired dream. And I love vampires, so it makes sense too. And then another one I've had, and this is kind of weird because I'm not a George Clooney fan, but I had a dream that I was George Clooney. And I was kind of, in my dreams, oftentimes I will switch between being like person A, person B, and then an omniscient godlike figure with no like physical form, just kind of looking. Or you could even say like sometimes I'm like an audience watching a movie, and then I become part of the movie. I become like a character in the movie. But one moment I would be George Clooney, and the next moment I'd be like the the person watching everything, you know, who knows what's going on. And I was at this, and this was gorgeous. I wish I could explain just how beautiful this was. I was in a spa in the middle of this vast body of water, and the sky was all like dark blues, dark purples, black, and had this beautiful like huge moon. The water like reflected these purples and pinks and blue and black, and it was very dark. And I just remember at one minute I was like George Clooney getting a massage, and then the next minute I was like this omniscient figure watching everything happen. And I was just thinking to myself, you need to get out of there, like they're gonna do something bad to you. And then I was like, shit, I hope I don't turn back into George Clooney when all the bad stuff happens. And I did, and they were cutting off pieces of me. So yeah, it was like they were like harvesting my skin or something like that. But yes, that dream didn't last very long because I have the tendency to wake up before shit hits the fan, usually. But yes. Anyways, these are just some of the nightmares I've had. I'm interested in stuff like this. I don't know if you guys are, but I figured I'd share some of them, especially in the spirit of Halloween, you know. So, I hope you guys have a great time during Halloween. Let me know about some of the nightmares you guys have had. I am very interested in hearing about it. And if you have any particular videos you'd like me to make, please let me know. And have a wonderful day. Please like, comment, subscribe, and share if you liked this video, and if you like my content. It will get better. I will get editing software, and I will make my videos more awesome. But anyways, see you guys next time.